This is Center Street North, the dividing line, the racial dividing line of Birmingham, Alabama. We are passing the home of Arthur Shores, whose home was bombed 3 different times during the 60s.
Jeff Drew cannot forget what life was like living in the segregated South of the 1960s.
And I was laying on the floor watching the TV, and the next moment, me and the TV are at the ceiling. It had literally blown us both off the floor. And I had my first taste of what a dynamite blast felt like.
Drew's family wasn't welcome in an all-white neighborhood. Determined to stay, his father took action to protect his family from hate groups.
That wall was built to stop the bullets and the dynamite that the Klan would shoot and throw.
Frankie Adams Johnson grew up in Mississippi, surrounded by symbols of racial segregation.
Whites were privileged, blacks were unprivileged, and we lived with signs of symbols of segregation. Whites here, blacks here.
You've got to keep the white and the black separate.
50 years ago, Birmingham was known as the most segregated city in the South. An example was here at the Lyric Theater. White customers could go through this entrance, while black customers had to go around the corner to a back alley entrance that was marked colored only.
Many Southern communities passed laws to separate blacks and whites in schools, restaurants, and many other public places. Congressman John Lewis, who grew up in rural Alabama, says he tasted the bitter fruits of racism.
I didn't like it. I saw those signs that said white men, colored men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting.
Mississippi is a state that has consistently resisted any move to rid itself of racism.
Hollis Watkins from Mississippi remembers some of the unwritten rules.
If you were walking down the sidewalk and you meet white people, you step off the side and bow your head until they pass. Because if you didn't, it could be considered disrespectful, and they might kick you, beat you, or put you in jail.
I'm not for integration, I'm for segregation, and I will be until I die.
Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
In June 1963, Alabama Governor George Wallace blocked 2 African Americans from enrolling at the all-white University of Alabama. After federal marshals and the National Guard stepped in, Wallace stepped aside. For his daughter Peggy, it was a painful memory.
It stained Alabama, of course, but it stained him for the rest of his life.
We have a right to expect that the Negro community will be responsible, will uphold the law, but they have a right to expect that the law will be fair, that the Constitution will be colorblind.
The symbols of racial segregation in the South started disappearing after the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
President Johnson affixes his signature,
giving millions of African Americans the same freedoms and liberties enjoyed by the country's then predominantly white population. Chris Simkins, VOA News, Birmingham, Alabama.